On October 17th, 2023, the Brightmore family's world was turned upside down when, at the age of just 44, a tumour was found in Angela's brain. 1 month later, they were introduced to the world that is hospice. This is Angela's story. Walking the final path together, a Hospice West Auckland podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Angela's story, Walking the Final Path Together. Today we are going to talk about the network of care that was weaved around Angela and the Brightmore family. And Aron, we've got a special guest with us today, don't we?
Yes, we do. Joining us remotely from sunny Ruakaka, I'm gonna guess, is my sister-in-law and Angela's sister, Sheree, who was a very, very big part of that care for Angela. So yeah, this is a great episode to have a chat to Sheree.
Absolutely. Welcome, Sharon. I'm Sheree, Angela's older sister.
Older sister. So I asked Aron in one of the first episodes who Angela was and what she was like as a wife. And I'm keen to start this episode off hearing from you who Angela was for you and what she was like as a sister.
Angela and I have always been super, super close. There's only 2 years, 9 months between us. So although we were very different growing up, Angela was always a really girly girl and I was very much a tomboy. We always got on, but as we got older, we just grew closer and closer. And she wasn't just my sister, she was my best friend, my confidant. I told Angela everything. I looked to her for advice and vice versa. Angela was there for both my children's births, which was super, super special. We'd been through a lot together, but Angela was always, although she's younger, she was always a very wise person. So I always call her my younger but wiser sister. She always had great advice. You could always bounce ideas off her, and she had the funniest sense of humour. We would often laugh about the silliest of things that most people probably wouldn't laugh about, but we thought were hilarious. We would talk on the phone at least twice a week, sometimes more if she was driving home from work and needed to debrief. And of course we went through the death of our mum together, so I think that brought us even closer together. And then when I had my children, she had already had Jamie, so she was a wealth of knowledge and expertise, and she's just everything to me. I miss her terribly.
Just on the sense of humor, Sheree, like that's something that sticks out for me about you guys, and it takes a lot to get used to, like and now, like the stuff that even you and I talk about now is the same kind of stuff that you and Angela would talk about, but like outside of our little group, you couldn't have those conversations,
Socially acceptable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And you're up in, as Aron said,
we were the type of the girls that, we thought farts were funny and we'd find humour in other people's mishaps.
like all sisters do, hey? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're up in Ruakaka, so sunny Northland.
Yes.
So at physical distance between the two of you, but it sounds like emotionally and your connection to each other was a very special connection, which is resounding throughout the people we're talking to. Angela had some incredible connections with her family and friends.
Yeah, I think that was Angela. She was loved by everybody she met. She just had that personality that people were drawn to, and she made the same effort with everybody. I could be quite slack at returning phone calls or making calls, but I could always guarantee that Andrew would ring me for a chat, and we'd talk for ages. And even though we there was a bit of a distance location wise between us, we always knew what was going on in each other's lives. And Andrew would always come up here for her holidays. Around Christmas time, she'd come up with the girls, and we get to spend time together then and make loads of memories, which was always nice.
Beautiful. That's where the proposal happened as well, hey?
It is where the proposal happened, the not so secret proposal. Yeah. It's good times.
So we've talked in the previous episodes around introduction to hospice. We've talked with Charlie about the nursing care and Angela's introduction to that, the care planning and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
A few things were also happening as Angela's illness progressed, and she started to need a lot more care and support. For you too, what were your roles in that, and how did you, Sheree, support your sister and Aron going through this while also maintaining your relationships?
So I think it was, like we've discussed earlier, like how quickly things kind of progressed, and like, and I've said it a couple of times, like for me, like looking at it was a 3-month period, but for me it felt like a lot longer, and because I was in it every day, and so you didn't notice changes and stuff like that as much as say like Sheree would. And so I think and me being who I am, I did a lot of the initial stuff I just did a lot of that by myself, and it kind of wasn't until it got to a point where it was like, actually I can't do this by myself. And obviously Sheree kind of being 2 hours away, and working and having her family commitments, wasn't able to be there all the time in that an initial period, but also because we weren't expecting it to progress like it did, so everything was kind of like, well, like we were just kind of flying blind, because you're given a prognosis, so you kind of, rightly or wrongly, you kind of work to that prognosis, and the initial one for Angela was anywhere from 18 months to kind of 3 years. So you're kind of working with that in mind. So, for me, I didn't feel the need to be like, hey, Sheree, you need to come and help me. Like, this is, it didn't kind of get to that point, I think, until kind of Sheree, would come down to visit.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, actually, this situation is a lot more serious than what I could see, because I was in it. So having Sheree kind of come in from the outside, for lack of a better term, and go like, actually, guys, this is not great.
Things have changed. Because, like Sheree would go, a week or two without seeing Angela, and they would talk all the time, but actually seeing her and being involved in it, so then when she would come down, she'd be like, no, this isn't good. And then, we kind of got to a time where thankfully, Sheree just was like, I'm here, and we got to do this. So, because otherwise I was kind of doing it by myself, thinking that everything, was kind of this extended time period that it wasn't. So, yeah. I can imagine prognosis is quite tricky, because like you said, you automatically then think you've got this time period. And so if you were living in it, you're counting for that. Sheree, what was it like from your perspective, obviously coming down and then seeing the changes each time you came?
Everything seemed to happen quite quickly. I struggled because I was so far away, and, I was still having to work at that stage because the school term hadn't ended. And, from Aron's point of view, he's in it every day, but I would start to see these things happen. For instance, when Ange had her slow fall in the shower, that happened while I was at work. And so there's lots of to and fro. All I could feel is that, I wanted to be there, but I just physically couldn't be there at that stage, apart from the weekends. And then my term for school ended on the 23rd of December, and that's when I came down. But by that stage, things were progressing quite quickly. And each time I saw Ange, I could see, a little more change. Probably, I don't know, more so than Aron, I guess, because he saw her every single day. So, each little time I would just notice a bit more about her and what she was going through. And so once I finally got down there, it was great, and it was a great feeling to finally be able to be a support for Aron and Angela. Yeah, and it just meant that I could forget about work and just put all my effort into being there with Ange. Unfortunately, though, I was only down there for a few days, and then my whole family ended up with COVID.
Oh no.
So then we had all head back up to Ruakaka and isolate for 5 days. Because obviously, Angela was doing chemo, so we didn't want her getting sick.
Yeah.
So as soon as I'd isolated, it was back down and back into it again.
A lot of traveling as well, a lot of coordinating, like you've said as well, coordinating your family, your work. Yeah, I can imagine there would have been a desperation or a desperate want to be there with her as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think back to we've talked about the October the 17th and Angela and I getting the news. I had to then relay that news to Sheree, but keeping in mind that Sheree was 2 hours away, and what do I tell her so that this 2-hour drive to come and be with Angela isn't torturous, you know what I mean? And so yeah, and I imagine that's what it was like, every time you had to go back, is thinking, what's going to happen in the, in the time that I'm away, kind of thing. So,
yeah, and also too anticipating like your phone calls, what's happening now, what's happened to Ange, where do we go from here? All those thoughts, you have going through your head, but you just can't physically be there.
Yeah.
It was really tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it speaks to me the fact that Angela's diagnosis and her illness wasn't just impacting Angela or her direct family. There's that network of a family around. Her friends, I remember, were quite impacted and all starting to try and rally and offer you support as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Like our house, from pretty much from October 17th, our house was never empty. There was constantly people there, and and it also, like, there was that whole period, just people were just dropping everything. Like all of a sudden, like work didn't matter to people. Like they just wanted to come and be with Angela, and they wanted to help in whatever way they could, which was amazing. It's quite overwhelming, as well, and and especially like with the with the hospice staff and all the different arms that kind of come off the support for Angela, that that kind of became quite overwhelming as more and more, not just family and friends kind of tried to help, but all the other agencies, tried to help us, and wanted to help as well. And that became quite almost like a full-time job, where, and that's why when Sheree came down, it was like almost like, well, I'm gonna kind of manage the admin side of this, and Sheree, I need you to look after Angela. I'll take the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. You make sure that she's okay, kind of thing. So yeah, it really was like a we just became like a really solid little team, just to kind of get things done.
Network of care that was starting to weave around your family, around Angela, family coming into support, and agencies and different services coming in. Where did hospice come into everything?
Yeah, so like we talked about a few episodes ago with Charlie, like once we kind of got over the initial, like, why do we need a hospice kind of feeling, and we're dealing with this prognosis that is, kind of 18 months to 3 years. You don't know what you don't know, right? So we didn't know that we needed shower seats. We didn't know that we needed stuff to just get Angela to the bathroom and things like that. And so that's where, so a hospice organized, especially in the initial phase, a hospice organized all of that like really, really quickly, like, you know, to kind of match how this progression was happening.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because we're kind of still getting used to this and getting our heads around it. You're like, well, why does she need that? Why does she need that? And then it's like, you know, a day later, it's like, oh, that's why she needs that, you know, and actually that makes things a lot easier for us.
And then a day or two after that, she's maybe needing something else.
Yeah. And so we all of a sudden we needed a wheelchair. You know, we had to get her to and from the car to take her to radiation, and you know, and we, you know, we couldn't. She couldn't walk, and so we didn't know how to get a wheelchair or anything, and so thankfully we had a friend that just rang me one day and was like, "I've got your wheelchair. I'm bringing it over," which was amazing, right? And we probably used that wheelchair for about 2 weeks before actually that wheelchair wasn't suitable anymore. And so it was back to hospice. Hey guys, what do we do?
Yes.
You know, and so you know, and then hospice put us in touch with, you know, an occupational therapist who says, okay, well, we can get you this wheelchair, or you know, all this other equipment that all of a sudden becomes part of our everyday life.
Yeah.
You know.
And we had an occupational therapist and a physio within hospice that came out and saw you and assessed Angela.
Yep.
But there was also that navigation between our team being able to navigate and communicate with the health board and getting the community services tapped in as well. Hey.
Yeah, and like I said before, like we kind of became this team where I had to deal with the admin side of what was going on. So, like, remember, Sheree, my phone didn't stop ringing.
Oh, yeah, constantly ringing.
And you had, like, to the point where I had to also divert Angela's phone. I had to divert it to my phone because all of these services were kind of ringing Angela.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, well, we need to redirect that kind of thing. And so, yeah, like I said, we became this kind of team where admin was kind of my responsibility, and going and getting medications and all of that kind of stuff. And Sheree, you hold the fort here and make sure that, you know, that she's okay. You know, and as that kind of progressed as well, like even just like getting medication, you know, I would get a phone call from hospice in the morning being like, okay, what medication does she need today? We're going to go and get it and we'll bring it to you.
Yeah.
You know, like, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you're trying to organize all of this stuff and keeping in mind that there's still children that are still going to school and you know, all of that life stuff is still happening, to have just those things where it's like, hey, you don't need to go and do that. We're going to come and bring that. We're going to bring that to you. Is massive, especially for me.
There's that quality of life aspect as well. Like you said, you know, life is going on at this point. And there's also, while you're trying and working to care for her and make sure that Angela's needs are met, you're also her husband, her sister, wanting to probably spend some quality time with your loved one as well, and balancing that carer role from that family member role as well must have been quite a challenge for you.
I think it was a challenge, wasn't it, Aron? But I think Aron and I kind of became a well-oiled machine, didn't we, Aron?
Yeah.
Like, we kind of just got to the point where we just knew what the other person was thinking. I would arrive in the morning and we would just get into mode, and we would get all the, you know, the caring things for Ange. I would go and get the bath stuff ready, and then we'd work together and, you know, get it all ready for the day. And then once we kind of got all that stuff, then we could kind of have our time, couldn't we, Aron, just to be with Ange. Yeah. But keeping in mind that, you know, she has loads and loads of friends. So like Aron said before, during the day, there's loads of people popping in to see her as well. So just navigating all the visitors, the caring, making sure we're spending time saying the things we need to say, all those things.
And and a big part of that, like Sheree said, we became a well-oiled machine. But the only reason we became a well-oiled machine was because hospice, the hospice staff, the various people that came in, coming in and showing us how to get her in and out of bed properly. Here's a slide sheet. Well, 2 months ago, what the hell was a slide sheet? I don't know what that is, let alone know how to use one.
How to access one.
Or how to access one. Yeah, exactly. And I remember the first time when we first got it, and at this stage, Angela wasn't in a hospital bed. She was, we could get her in and out of bed, and she was a bit more mobile. And we, the healthcare assistant from hospice came out and showed us how to do it, and we had this big demonstration. We're like, easy, we got this.
Got it.
And then the next day we tried to use it, and we were just like, this isn't for us. And we just left her out. And we did that for ages, Sheree? And we had to get Anita to come back and show us again how to use it. Because we had no idea. And especially around the showering. And I think you probably agree, Sheree, like the showering thing was like, yes, it was a practical thing. She obviously needed to shower and stuff every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And while it was hard, those were some really special times for us. I remember, I would take her to the toilet, and she would sit down on the stool, and I would, and I'd wheel it back and all of that kind of stuff. And then when I would lift her up, every time I would lift her up, she would put her arms around you, and she'd give you a kiss on the cheek. And you were just like, oh, this is like, and I've said this to Sheree loads of times, like, it was, that 3 months was the most awful 3 months of our lives, but also some of the best moments of our lives. We got to have these little moments. And so we kind of held on to those things probably for a little bit longer than we should have, especially when it came to showering and stuff. And then can you remember who it was, Sheree, that came in and was like, actually, guys, you can't keep doing this?
Was that Anita?
Yeah,
I think it might have been Anita. And I do remember from that day on, because I kind of, that last time we went to shower Ange, I kind of got the feeling just by her eye contact and her body movements that she just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so Aron and I left it that day like, okay, come on, let's just get you back into bed. And so we did. And then I think maybe we mentioned that to Anita the next day, and she said, well, she shouldn't be getting up for the shower now anyway. She needs to be resting as much as she can. We're going to start bed baths. And Anita was just absolutely amazing. Like, that's one of the services I remember. She was just, Angela got to the stage, like, if anyone from hospice came in, a carer or, another service person, you could just see Ange start to relax. Like, she just knew that she was in good care.
That's probably because she was like, thank God the professionals are here and these guys aren't going to fix it.
And we love Ange, and we want, we did our absolute best to do everything for her and make sure we were doing everything right. But, and I think she did put a lot of trust in us, didn't she, Aron? She was very happy with the way we cared for her. But you could just tell when they came in, she just had this ease about her. The whole room just went calm. And I think, like, Angela herself was calm, but I think it gave Aron and I a bit of peace of mind as well, just knowing that she was getting the nurture and, the caring from someone. And Anita was just so gentle and respectful, did everything slowly, talked to Ange the whole process. it was really lovely to see, and lovely that she really took the time to teach us how to do it step by step, worked with us so that we knew how to do it. And that it was after that we kind of became the well-oiled machine, because of the time that she took to show us how to do everything properly, and use the slide sheet again properly, and how to take Angela's nightwear off, keeping her comfortable, and and getting her dressed, and all those things. Like, yeah, so much detail, but it was so helpful.
Because it's easy for us to forget as well. It's something, Anita or us in the workplace will do regularly. So it's known to us how to use a sliding sheet if that's what we're trained to do.
Yeah.
But we forget sometimes that it's a brand new foreign thing for whānau and families to suddenly try to figure out to use.
Yeah.
Aside from managing Angela's cares and her physical and her medical needs, there was a bit of touch from the social care team as well. So I think we had some of our counselling team checking in with you guys along the way.
Yeah, and it was really like unintrusive, I guess is the word. It was just it was very light. It was very softly, like, hey, we're kind of here if we're here if you need us, kind of situation. And it wasn't just me. It was it was the kids, and it was Angela, and it was Sheree, and it didn't matter who it was. If someone involved needed us, needed to talk to someone, but it wasn't it like I said, it was kind of subtle, and it was like just yes, we're here if you need us. So yeah.
And Angela received some massage from our massage therapists.
So Angela is a massive fan of massages and back rubs, and they kind of didn't come until kind of quite close to the end.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, oh, the massage therapist is coming to see you, and you just I can picture her face in my head, Sheree, that face where she'd raise her eyebrows and make a little smile. And you just knew she was like, oh man, you could tell that she was like, this is gonna be so much better than the crap ones that you try and give me. And the massage therapist came in, and she just loved it. Like, just like Sheree said, she just relaxed, but like even more so. And you're like, oh, she's really, really loving it.
Mm.
And I think the one that sticks out in my mind the most is the one, and I think it might have been maybe 2 or 3 days before she passed away, and we weren't getting a lot of response by this stage. She there wasn't a lot of talking or anything like that, and I think Charlie said, do you want me to organize for the massage therapist to come? And we were like, yeah, like
she loves
she will love it. And like I said, even though she wasn't kind of there wasn't a lot of talking, it was just very almost like she was asleep all the time. She had that massage, and you could see again that she was just like, yeah, this is really good stuff, and she'd been in, by that stage she was in bed like all the time. She couldn't move. We couldn't move her. So you think about, if you spend all that time in bed, how you think it's a great idea at first, but then when you're not moving or anything, how awful that must have been. That to just have that was just such a relief for her. You could see it on her face. Yeah.
And just so respectful and gentle, and I just love the way that it was almost like it was just her and Ange in the room. No one else mattered for that time. It was all about Ange, and she just softly spoke to her and told her what she was doing. And and like, I know on that particular last time, she had worked quite a lot around Angela's neck and shoulder, because it was quite tight from the way she was sitting. And afterwards, like, Angela just looked so much more relaxed. Like, she couldn't tell us verbally, but you could certainly see it in her face and her body language. Yeah.
It's so important for me in my role and the areas that I'm interested in is that holistic care.
Yeah.
And I don't think many people, when they think of hospice, it's another one of those misconceptions where we know a lot about the medical, the nursing care, but we don't often know about that whole wraparound holistic supports. Were you guys aware of that when Angela was first admitted?
No, like not at all. And I said at the very beginning, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And while it was overwhelming, like initially, it was like, what do you mean we just get all of this? Do you know what I mean? Like, and it just kind of blew me away. So, we're going to organize a massage therapist for you, and we're going to have someone come and do this for you, and we're going to, and you're like, okay, well, what do we have to do for that? You're like, nothing. You're like, what do you mean nothing? Yeah, and it it's still, and that's kind of why I was said in the first episode, like, this is kind of why we're here a little bit, is to make people aware, that of all the great work that that hospice do, because again, like, just so many people just don't know. And the sad thing is, there'll be people out there that are going through what we've been through and don't know, and are trying to do this by themselves, and for I was going to say for a long time, but it wasn't that long at all. It felt like a long time, but for a long time, that's kind of how I felt. It was like, well, I've got to do this by myself. I have to look after her and stuff like that, and to have that kind of relief, you know what I mean? To just come in and be like, actually, you don't have to do this by yourself. Here's all of the things that we can do to help, and then to actually do them without me having to chase, and ring people and be like, hey, we're meant to have this, and we're meant to have this, and
also on your terms as well, right? Because it's often we have so many different services available that will work for different people. And like you said, with the counsellor, they're touching base to check in, and that's so that as and when you need them, they're there, because everybody's grief journey is different, right? But the key thing is always putting it back till it's on your terms. What you need, when you need, how you need it, is how we try to work in and support you.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think for me personally, I knew that hospice wasn't just about end of life. We'd had hospice in when Mum was sick, and we'd had all the help with all the furniture that she needed and that sort of thing. But, even having been through that with Mum, and, the nurses and everyone were wonderful with Mum, but I still wasn't aware of all the other services, like the physiotherapy and the massage. And so I think it really is important to get out that those things are available. And I'm so deeply grateful, for them treating Ange with all the tenderness and respect, and it just means the world to us that she was cared with such love, and dignity was kept in check, which was really important to us too.
And working in to support you guys with what you were doing, because we forget how much family support and how much they do in situations like this.
Yeah, and I think, like, and I look back at it now, and I've had some time to kind of reflect on things I would do differently, and I think for me, I know that I didn't have to do everything by myself, or not so much by myself, but I didn't have to do everything, but because like Sheree said, dignity was a really, really, and dignity and privacy was a really, really big thing for Angela, so that obviously was important to me. And so I kind of like almost put a shield around her, and it took a lot to, to kind of break that down. But we were talking before about spending time with her and things like that. I think for me personally, I could have relied on those services more than I did, to have more time with her, and probably make things easier for her as well, yeah.
I think hindsight's one of those things as well, when you're thinking maybe with the prognosis and how that's changing as well.
Yeah.
You don't know at the time what you need until you have other people come in and let you know what's going on, right?
Yeah, and I think we Sheree and I were actually talking about this a week or two ago, and Angela's big thing was that she didn't want us to see her suffer. Obviously she had already been through with the girl's mum passing away, and that that had been quite traumatic, and so Angela was always like, I don't want you guys to see me suffer. The fact that she kept going for as long as she did. And I said to Sheree the other day, I said that I think that was her way of saying thank you to us for looking after her, in the way that we did, and and that means the world to us. And without sounding like we're patting everyone on the back too much, like, we could only do that stuff. We could only look after her in the way that we did because of the support that we had. Like, and it's not an understatement at all. Like, without the support and stuff that hospice gave us, Angela wouldn't have been at home. She would have been in a hospital. We wouldn't have got to spend all of the time that we did with her. We wouldn't have been able to get those special moments that that we got, because it got to a point where we couldn't have kept going by ourselves, and without hospice, that's what would have happened, and and so we just can't thank hospice enough. Yeah.
They say it takes a village, and it's always it's more than one person, so it's good to hear how much support you guys were able to weave into caring for Angela at this crucial moment in her life, and supporting her with maintaining her dignity, her quality of life, and cherishing those very special moments. The kiss on the cheeks. I'm imagining that there was still lots of laughter and humour and sisterly jokes going on as well. All throughout.
Sheree, do you?
There was lots of emotions, I can tell you. There were happy times, there were sad times, there were very funny times.
Sheree, do you want to share your funny story?
Oh, you can start it.
So in one of these moments, we were getting to the point where we couldn't, it was kind of, maybe we couldn't take her to the shower and stuff anymore, but we were.
Time we tried to shower her.
Yeah. And so we've wheeled her into the bathroom, and our bathroom is very, very narrow, so not ideal for the situation that we're in. So we're trying to kind of maneuver her into the bathroom, and then we've kind of got to lift her up and then spin her around onto the. It's a waltz. It was like a Formula One pit crew. It was like a poor Formula One pit crew, but
yeah. Aron would be in the shower. I'd be half in the shower. So it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So this time I said, well, before we put her in the shower, let's just while she's on the commode, I'll just get some nice warm soapy water and I'll give her a little wash while she's sitting there, because it's very hard once you're in the shower, which we did. And bless Angela, she's always had loads of trouble with her bowels, poor girl. But this time, I guess the warm water was soothing. You carry on, Aron.
So Angela we had her on the toilet. Like, do you need to go to the toilet? No, I'm okay. Okay. So we wheel her away we're going to put her in the shower. Sheree goes to lift her, and Sheree looks down, and Angela's done a little poo, and it's landed on Sheree's arm. And we're just at the point we just look at each other, and the three of us all just look at each other, and Angela's kind of got this look on her face like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, there's nothing I can do. And Sheree's like, oh, well, it's okay. Yep, no, we'll carry on and clean up. And by this stage, I'm like, and I run out of the bathroom. And it was like, like any other time you'd be like, this is disgusting. But it was just like, of course, this is what's happened. And the look on Angela's face of like, whatever, like, what do you want me to do? And Sheree just being like, oh, well, doesn't matter. Oh, just, yeah.
It's just a little nugget of
it's just so good. Like I said, like it sounds random to call it a special moment, Sheree, but like we'd still talk about it now.
And then after that, Aron was on the phone with the doctors, and I was had a towel around Ange, and I was just we're waiting for Aron to come back so we could pop her in the shower. And this is after we'd kind of cleaned up a bit. And then Ange was sitting on the chair, and I had the towel around her, and I was just kind of standing over her with my hands on her shoulders, and she just kind of nuzzled into me and looked up at me. It was like an unspoken thanks, sis. It was it was a very funny moment. And one that we'll probably talk about for a little.
Angela's legacy lives on.
Yeah. 100%.
She would be laughing. She's laughing now, I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sheree, for coming and joining Aron and I and sharing your stories and your beautiful relationship that you had with your sister.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We'll wrap it up there. Join us next week as we talk about Angela's rapidly changing condition and what came next. Thanks for joining us.